As the city of San Francisco has grown, there are a number of cultural organizations that have grown with it. Of course, the San Francisco Symphony, the ballet, and this year we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the SFMOMA, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. And one of the things that many of our viewers may not understand about museums is that the way that they grow and evolve is really about a broad participation and support from many individuals who give their collections to the museum. And this year, the SFMOMA is going to be celebrating and acknowledging those individuals through an exhibition called the Anniversary Show. And joining me to talk about that and the 75th anniversary is Janet Bishop, the curator of painting and drawings. So Janet, I understand that you have been with the museum for quite a number of years, and of course remember its original home on Van Ness at the War Memorial Building. Mm-hmm. And now you were part of that transition that brought you to Yerba Buena Center and Civic Center, and of course your museum has been really the anchor cultural tenant that has helped to transform this area of the city.
Well, I mean, to my mind, really, more is more, and it's wonderful to be part of such a rich cultural community here. When visitors come to this area, they have so many different options available to them.
But let's talk about your anniversary show, which is going to be such a phenomenal opportunity for San Franciscans and all visitors of the city to get a real sense of how the museum has grown and the important cultural role that you've played.
What we've really done is focus on moments where SFMOMA was involved in pushing the dialogue about contemporary art forward. The Jackson Pollock exhibition that we had here in 1945 is a perfect example of that. Our founding director, Grace McCann Morley, was deeply interested in abstraction and was engaged in a dialogue with Pollock's dealer, Peggy Guggenheim, about bringing the Pollock show to the West Coast. The original price for the painting was $750. Morley, our director, felt like that was just going to be too much of a stretch for the Board of Trustees, and so she convinced Peggy Guggenheim to reduce the price to $500 and wrote to her saying it was just what was needed to persuade the board. The collection that we have is not a sort of objective history of art, but it's a very subjective history of art that has been very much shaped by the individuals who have been involved with the museum over the years. We start in 1935 with a gallery that is devoted to work that came in through Albert Bender. He was one of our founding trustees. When we opened our doors, January 18th, 1935, 181 of the 186 pieces in our permanent collection had been gifts of Bender.
What are some other outstanding names that sort of pop out for you as the museum evolved and grew?
We have another gallery that looks at the new work series that this museum has held here since the late 1980s. We focus on a particular aspect of that program that developed under one of our former curators, John Caldwell. He arrived in San Francisco in 1989 and was especially interested in artists who were engaged with issues of appropriation.
What are some of the collection edition highlights that have happened since you've been in this position?
One of the aspects of the museum's program that I've been especially involved with has been the SICA Art Award exhibitions. It stands for Society for the Encouragement of Contemporary Art and is really intended to honor exceptional Bay Area artists early in their careers. For instance, an early work by Barry McGee, who showed here in 1996. For this exhibition, he's extended it and updated it to 2010 with the addition of photographs and other framed works.
Thank you, Janet, for being part of Culture Wire.
My pleasure. Thanks, Luis.
As we examine the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art 75th anniversary, we can't overlook its important role as an educational institution and how it brings public programs to all of our citizens in the Bay Area. And joining me now to talk about that is Dominic Wilsden, the Leanne and George Roberts Curator of Education and Public Programs. You're vested with really a kind of a multifaceted responsibility that involves education, but also a lot of multimedia as well. Could you explain that, all the different hats you wear here at the museum?
Yeah, I mean, there are really sort of three main areas in my department. We produce education activities for all ages, K through 12, and adults. And then we also produce a lot of interpretive or educational media, a lot of interviews with artists, a lot of stuff we publish online, and to various ways in the galleries. And then also there's an area of public programs, which includes some educational activities, but also some live cultural programming, film, performance, artist projects, things like that.
What are all the ways that the museum sort of reaches out to audiences?
The latest kind of new platform for educational media is launching just right now with this anniversary. We've got to the point where we can put a lot of the fantastic kind of content about artists and stories behind artists that we've had online for some time, put those onto iPod Touch.
Could you talk a little bit about, sort of the more traditional educational role that the museum plays in the city of San Francisco?
Yeah, we're in the middle of a new initiative to provide more and resources and programs for families in the locality. We're benefiting from a grant from the Wallace Foundation that we're in the middle of now, and in the last 2 years, many more Bay Area families are coming to the museum and participating in the programs, most of which take place on Sundays, and we're going to see more and more different offerings for families being rolled out in the coming months and over the next year or two.
Well, thank you, Dominic, for being part of Culture Wire.
Thanks very much.
As we know, museums are really almost like a team sport. There's a tremendous amount of talented staff that are put together, patrons that help to support the institution, but all of them need a coach. And the coach of the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, its director, Neil Medezra. So Neil, could you let us, our viewers know, you've been director of the museum for how long now?
We're working on 8 years, about 7.5 years.
And now you've got the 75th anniversary that you've been preparing for. How does that feel?
We opened this building in 1995, January 1995. And it was thought at that time that the move from the Civic Center and the Veterans Building in particular to 3rd Street into our new building in 1995, much expanded space, much better space, would have been more than adequate, would have been wonderful for the museum for decades to come. And in 15 short years, we've been amazed to find that we've outgrown this building. The collection's grown from, I think, 12,000 works to 26,000 currently.
So was it really challenging to decide what was going to be put on display during the anniversary year? 3
curators on our staff, Janet Bishop, Corey Keller, and Sarah Roberts, spent, I think, about 2.5 years really going through archives and through our storage vaults and unearthing all kinds of, not just works that we hadn't seen in the galleries very much, but also a lot of history that we uncovered about how we presented a television show produced by the museum, in the museum, in 1950 about contemporary art and design. So there are a lot of great stories that the presentation of the collection tells.
And of course, the most recent exciting news was the incredible decision on the part of Don and Doris Fisher to give their collection in custodialship to the SFMOMA.
I think it's commonly understood that the Fisher collection, with 1,100 works by some of the great modern masters and contemporary masters, is one of the great collections in the world, not just in this community or the Bay Area or the state, but in the world. But in fact, the collection's not been seen. It's been stored largely at the GALP headquarters, but there's never been a publication, there's never been an exhibition.
The bequest of the Fisher collection and the additional expansion to Howard Street is going to really ratchet up the museum over the course of the next 15 years. But what do you think in total over the next 25 years the museum will be like?
It's important to say that we're very committed to expanding the museum, expanding the collections, overall growth of the museum. But one of the things that's very important to us, and we're just about to enter in a strategic planning process actually, where this will be a key and really fundamental question that we want to address, is how will SFMOMA grow and continue and really enhance its engagement with this community. It's not enough that a museum have great works in its collection, make great exhibitions, run wonderful education programs. It's how does an institution grow and at the same time enhance its relationship with this community. And this is something that's very, very important to us and that we're quite committed to.
Well, Neil, on behalf of the residents of San Francisco, we want to thank you for really shepherding this institution through this incredible growth phase. And thank you for being part of Culture Wire.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Don't miss out on the museum's exciting anniversary programs and events. Visit sfmoma.org for more information.